Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Yelders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Buenas, this is Cisco Gallardo with the Healing Generations podcast, Yelder edition, from the National Compadres Network. I want to thank all our listeners. I want to, it's been a lot of crazy stuff's been going on. I'm glad we're here, recording. I know I always say this is a special episode, but I feel like it is special. It's one of those times where we're talking to a young leader, right now, especially this is a pivotal time. So before we get started, as what we like to do as respect to our cultura, our ancestors, is we want to ask permission. We call upon the four directions for that guidance, for that ancestral knowledge, the wisdom of our people. So wherever you're at, I want you to close your eyes if you can. And I want you to think in your mind, looking that east direction. I want you to think in that east direction where all the men are. And I want you to think about your grandpa, your dad, your tios, maybe your nephews, your son, your brothers. I want you to think about all the men in your life, your homies, your hood dads, your hood uncles. Think about them and all the wisdom, all the pain that they went through and all the blessings that they carry. So you think about them, how important they are to our people, how important they are to our families. And then I want you to turn around, go in the left direction. We go left because that's where our heart is. We want to follow our heart. We go left and we go to that west direction. And as we're going that way, we think of all our LGBTQ plus relatives, all the blessings they bring us, all the support. Especially these times, people are hating on them for no reason. I should Creator to bless them, And I know they're a part of everything that we do. We want to acknowledge them in a good way. And all the lessons that they teach us. And all the beauty and blessings that they bring to us. As we face that west direction, we think of all our grandmothers, our moms, our tias, our nieces, our daughters. I think about my granddaughters, their little smiles, all those things. So we want to think about all the women in our lives, all the blessings that they bring us, how they take care of our community in so many different ways. We want to acknowledge those that we know and those that we don't. And with that, we even think about our hood aunties, our hood moms, the ones that helped us, guide us, that gave us a little bit of hope, showed us a little bit of love and compassion. We want to think about them, and bring them in the room with us. As we talk, we remember we're connected in all these different ways. So I want you to move left again, all the way around to that north direction, to our ancestors. We want to think about them. We want to think about all the beauty that they bring to us. The ancestors, what they went through on our behalf. Despite all the trauma that they faced, they survived. And they kept things for us. And we want to think about our elders too, especially this time of year in the winter. In other parts of the country where it's really cold, they're having to think, should I put on the heat today? Should I do these types of things? They're not sure how they're going to pay for it. I want to acknowledge our elders, the wisdom keepers, the medicine people, just our grandmas and grandpas, and that neighbor down the street. So if you have parents, grandparents, I want you to call them, talk to them, listen to them. A lot of our elders feel lonely and they need our support. They need to just talk and interact, Think about that. And as you turn left again, through that spectrum of age, from the oldest all the way down to the youngest, we face that south direction and we think of all the children in the world. Even those children, those babies that are not even born yet, the women that are pregnant, all the things that they go through. We think about those babies just growing, learning. And then they become little newborns to toddlers, to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, even in college beyond, We think about them, the promises we make them, and the things that we say to them, you're our future. And we're their protectors. We got to do what we can so that they are that future. They have a room to thrive and build and grow and bring creativity to our people, We have to be open to that. And at the same time, teach them that what seems new could be old. You have to be open to that, I always tell young people, even the music you listen to has been recycled many times, But it's all right, Those oldies live on forever, even if it's a new beat, It's what I say. And we want to honor the sun. We want to honor Tonantiu, as we call it. We're going to honor that energy of the sun, And just the hope that the light of the sun brings to us when we see it. We know it's coming, And I want everybody to feel that way. That hope is just, that time when that sun shows up, If you need a reminder, the Creator shows us, And then I want you to touch that earth, all the things that the earth provides for us, the manifestations of what we say is Tonantzin, Coahuicle, all the different versions of her. She represents all the beauty in life and all the diversity in life too. It's not just, we have the animals here, but it's the plant, all how we work together. Our Lakota brothers and sisters talk about all my relations. So we want to think about that, all our relations, what we're connected to. And we have to take care of the earth. And I just want to remind you, you're making choices in your life, even at your home. What are you doing to help protect Mother Earth in a good way? If we all put in just a little bit, it's going to make a big difference. So I just want to share that with each and every one of you. And then I want you to put your hands in the middle and think of the Creator. Whatever you believe, I'm not telling you what to believe. However you refer to the Creator, Jesus, Allah, however you look at it. Maybe you're even atheist, but I want you to think about one thing, just the miracle of life. And just be thankful we're alive, we're thriving. And no matter how hard it gets, it's that connection that we're all looking for. We're all looking for that connection. So with that, relatives, I just want to ask you again, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time. And as we get started today, I want you to think about in your own life, how can you make a difference? What is the difference that you're going to make today, tomorrow, And think about all the blessings you have and what could you do. And even if you feel today, you feel hopeless, believe me, we need you more than you realize. So I just want to say that much. All right. Thank you. Thank you for, again, being patient as we move forward. Today, we have a special guest, like I said before. Her name is Vanessa. I'll let her introduce herself and how she represents herself, because I think it's important. Every person, as you get older, you start to build your own agency about who you are, what you represent. And to me, it's exciting. Michelle, our producer here, but also she works on Healing Generations, all these different things that we work on. But she had told me a little bit about Vanessa and showed me her Instagram, and I was checking it out. And I was excited because I've always been in the movement. I've shared that many times here on the podcast. And for me, it's good to see different generations picking it up in different ways and bringing whatever they bring to it. To me, is a breath of fresh air. That's the one thing about the politics of our people. It's evolving. And there's a foundation of it, but it evolves too. And we have to be open to that, We can't just stay stagnant and then over romanticize the older movements. They happened and we learned from them. But what history are we making? What history are we making? We can't just celebrate all these days that happened to our people. What new holiday are we going to create for ourselves? Like, the Chicano moratorium years ago, I went to the 20th anniversary when I was 18 years old. And for me, it changed my life in a lot of ways, And I went to the 20th anniversary of Wounded Knee in 1993 too. I went there to Wounded Knee, South Dakota, and I got to see that. I got to see the elders and the young people And I want everybody to experience that. But what are we going to create now? You know, ever since I think Standing Rock, we've kind of been looking for different things, you know. But I'm telling you, look right there in your own community, in your own home. There's many things that our people can do in a good way. So with that, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you tremendously, your energy, your vibe when it comes to this. So if you could please share a little bit about yourself, your family, your background, your journey up to this point in life.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for inviting me, Sister Michelle. Thank you for putting in the word, y corriendo la voz. I'm really grateful and I'm thankful we met years ago. And just, I guess, a little bit about myself. Vanessa Bustamante. I go by Homegirl Doctora on Instagram and social media. I am a proud daughter of indigenous people, original to Mexico, original to the Mexica, little mix of Mayan. And so I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, Tongva territory, and I have been involved with movement spaces since I was 18 years old. I actually went to a Catholic school in the San Fernando Valley. And in 2006, I had heard of A Day Without a Mexican on TV. And so in protest, I told my dad, let's stay home. Little did I know my protest was not that effective because I went to a Catholic school, but still, it was making a statement. And from then on, I just had this fire in me to go to college, become a Chicano studies major, and learn about myself so that when people told me to go back to Mexico or when I was trying to honor my culture, go back to wherever I came from, I'd have a rebuttal of sorts in my responses. And that was really what fueled me to go to college. I had been told at the ripe age of 17 that I was not college material. I didn't realize at the time that I was just being categorized as a chola, and people thought that I would be pregnant by the time I was 18, that my grades weren't good enough to get me to a college. And so I really think that's where a lot of my story began, being followed in stores and seeing people's humanity, especially within my family, hardworking, amazing, great people that were just consistently pushed and shoved and made to feel less than and criminalized for what they look like without anybody ever really getting to know them. And I think that is a lot of what I saw growing up. And I think that is what I've continued to see in society. And that's what activates me.
So what lessons have you learned from your culture, your family, from your life experience that have helped you in your healing and development?
I've learned a lot in terms of culture, especially I think growing up, I was in an in-between, right? I saw the traditional Mexican culture, but I also saw more of, I guess, the American side. And I kind of felt like maybe I'd be somewhere in between. I don't want to say that this is everyone's experience. This is my experience, and I'm talking from the I, but I saw a lot of beautiful, intelligent, loving Mexican women just be walked all over, punched in their faces, just treated brutally. They were already being treated brutally by society, and then they'd come home and be treated brutally there. And I didn't want to be one of them. And then on the flip side, I saw my chola chingona cousins who, at the minute of somebody saying something wrong or almost, getting pushed or shoved, would come out with a bat and be like, let's go. And so I wanted to be more her, the one that was going to fight back, the one that wasn't going to let herself. But I also wanted to be the loving, caring, nurturing person So I think I learned from culture to try to figure out how to be an in-between of that. I thank my culture because there's not a lot of cultures, that I've seen that have that duality of sense, right? And so I appreciate my culture for that. I think my culture also comes with so many beautiful traditions that I think got commodified over time, to be honest with you, because as I've been invited into different spaces, healing spaces, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like this thing in the Catholic Church. And this is like the Incan people, right? And this is, so I see the fuse. And so I think a lot of that has helped me heal. I think realizing that we are also interconnected in similar ways, and how socially constructed ideas and living here, I think sometimes how those socially constructed ideas become part of what we believe when that's not really at our core. So I think that has really helped me just kind of point the finger at me and ask myself consistently, who do I want to be? And who is that person serving? Is that person serving the greater good, or is that person just serving self? Right? Because ironically, growing up in the Catholic Church, being an altar server, being a choir singer, getting super involved to the point where I wanted to be a priest when I was in 6th grade. I wanted to be a preacher, to be up there and speak. And I was told that I couldn't because I was a woman, right? And it's not the fact that they told me that it was a problem that I was a woman. It's the fact that nobody could justify their answer as to, okay, so what about being a woman doesn't allow me to do this? Oh, well, it's just doctrine. It's just what it says. And so I didn't want to go through the world following blindly. I wanted to figure out my own way. And we don't live in a world like that. We don't. But being invited into healing spaces, I feel like some spaces do allow you to kind of learn your own way. I'm all about respect. And if, someone shows me something, I will be respectful of their culture and learn to honor that respect if I ever, do something as part of that healing ritual for myself or for others, right? But I also have kept myself out of healing spaces because I have been in healing spaces where I basically say, you have to do it this way. And so it reminds me a lot of church. So I'm like, well, how are you any different? Right? So I think I'm still healing. I ain't there yet. I know because I sit with myself at least 4 times a week. I have my check-ins. I see where my gaps are, my shadows. And I'm committed to still doing this work because the more I show up for myself, understand myself, the more knowledge and wisdom I also can share from my own experience, but also the better I can show up in other spaces, right? So I think healing is a journey. And I don't think, contrary to, I think, what a lot of things that are out there, especially as it relates to Western therapy, is that people are healed and just everything's fine now. I think I'm going to be healing until I ascend. And I think there's probably other healing on the other side. I don't know. That's just maybe just an idea I have, but I don't think we're ever done.
So in the idea of cultura, you said you got activated many years ago when you in high school, you kind of seen what was going on and in church. And, I had that feeling too. I remember being in church. Well, when I went away for a little while, when I came back, I said, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to live life right. Because that's what you're taught, right? But I went to church and I thought, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not from the Middle East. Like it wasn't speaking to me. No disrespect to anybody else, but for me, it wasn't speaking to me. At the same time, I also saw and felt, from my dad. He always told me to be proud. You're mestizo. He never denied. I have a grandpa who I look like, and my grandpa was very proud Mexicano. Very, very proud Mexicano. to the point this guy made statues of himself. Like he was a little conceited. I never went that far, but I really love my grandpa. But it's part of that, it's part of how do we really understand and connect to our culture. So for you, what was that? What was that beyond when you first got involved? What lured you into the cultura? Was it the politics and your need to stand up for the people? Or was it something like you said there's some cultural practices that you were a part of? What are the ones that just drew you in? Like, was it like a lot of people feel really strong about Dia de los Muertos, right? Because you could do something. You could honor your family. You could honor the community. You could honor elders. You could even make the good thing about Muertos for a lot of people is that with kids that was the first time that when I was young, used it in a way to mourn and deal with my homies that died. I made an altar for the dead homies. We called it Teen Angels, put a picture, all this elaborate thing. I remember inviting some people over to come and look at it. Some middle school kids and other kids, they came over to look at this art gallery that I was a part of called CHOC, the Chicano Humanities and Arts Council. And it's been around. It was one of the first art galleries in Colorado. And it was a big deal, way back in the day. It's still a big deal. I still support it. But it's one of those things that I saw it and these kids came and they looked at it and they cried. They were like, whoa. And I don't think they even thought, it just blindsided them. Boom. That's the power of cultura to me. And we put stuff on there when we were young. We put 40s and weed and we put, there's the smothered fries. We put in Denver, that's a big thing. People love this one restaurant and they have like their own smothered fries kind of thing. And I put that on there and we put all kinds of stuff. And for me, that was it. What was it for you?
It was my Chicano Studies 100 class with Elias Serna at Cal State Northridge. He showed us the educational pipeline, and it made so much sense. And it made me angry because I had surrounded myself, I was surrounded my entire life by my family who was smart, who did things differently, but they were builders. They were innovators. Maybe not in the way that it was accepted in the classroom.
Yeah.
But they were brilliant people to me. And the fact that I learned that the push out is systemic, that aggravated me. I'm not joking though. Like I went from like left to right, like angry. And I was already in Mecha because I had signed up for Mecha the summer before I even started school. But that was my outlet. It was my ability to go out and yell, let it out. It made me stop fighting. I used to fight like in high school. And in middle school, I would let it out by pushing someone but being at protest allowed me to let it out. It was the only medicine that I had access to. And, I don't want to say like there was no other medicine because I was also part of the American Indian Student Association and I went to powwows. But because I also wasn't from their tribes, I wasn't invited in. And so I saw how I wanted to be part, but it wasn't necessarily an open door for me. But I honored that too, because I saw the Chicano struggle. And so I saw that you do have to keep sacred certain spaces because people will come in and try to destroy them, right? And that's how I could live in the duality of being on paperwork for the American Indian Student Association for them to be alive on campus and get funding, but not be invited to medicine or be invited into other spaces, right? And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people are just, I'm not included and it's not an inclusive space. And I think I realized very early, like, I'm not going to be included in every space because every space is not necessarily for me. Our sorority actually has a motto that says, LTA may not be for everyone. And that's fine. Because there are thousands of, like, basically hundreds of other sororities out there, right? So you need to have a want to be part of this one. Like, it needs to be special to you for you to honor it. And I still believe that, you know? And so I didn't feel not included, but I just saw so much in culture and, like, so many different things. And I think what has continued, I think, activating me is that I have seen healing through activism. And sometimes it was through talking to an elder that represented my father. And he just wanted to tell me his idea of history and not listen to anything I had to say, right? But it's also being able to respect.
Yeah.
Because what am I going to do? Get up and, like, smack my father? Smack this elder man? I'm not going to do that, right? But I'm also going to stand up for myself, right? And I think that's another thing I've seen in movement spaces is, as for myself, as a woman identified person with a very masculine presentation, I can stand up for myself because I'm willing to fight. Again, the chola with the baseball bat. Like, I will go find the bat before you put a hand on me. Because if my dad ain't doing that, you are not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all of those convoluted things that, like, have kept me activated in the movement, because I saw the struggle of a people. I saw the struggle, experienced the struggle of the poor, right? I saw the struggle of a woman. I saw the struggle of a person living in duality and having to conform to a box within LGBTA, a student group that I was also part of. I was in so many different spaces, and I will tell you that none of them were ever inclusive of the holistic me. Because the holistic me is what I was creating through all these movement spaces. So I think when it comes to healing, all of that played a major role in all of my healing. Being part of so many different groups and understanding things from a different lens, and recognizing that I didn't need to speak in LGBTA in the completely white space. I needed to listen because I was put here to be an organizer, to be a strategist. And in order to do effective organizing, you cannot shut down when the opposition is out to get you. You need to stop and listen and reassess. And I think that was always my idea. I was coming in to be a bridge builder. I joined the sorority with Mecha roaring at me and telling me, what are you doing? Why are you joining that? And doing it anyways, and doing the Chicano power chant at my coming out show to assert my identity in a more elitist space. Because that's it is what it is. It was based on a lot of historically white ideals.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that I thought, just like what I read about infiltration, I think we needed to kind of learn some of these systems to figure out how to dismantle them. If you never get inside, if you never see the inner workings, if you never see what they're talking about on the other side, you're never going to know. So I chose the less harmful route by being conscious and joining a national Latina-based sorority that had roots in social justice. I chose the lesser, what people want to say, the lesser of the evils, right? But that's the thing. In that space, I also saw the girls that were left out of being able to walk into Metra meetings. So how we just separated ourselves and created that, right? And that has been the continuous fire that I've had. Is the exclusion, even just in our own spaces. And that's what I actually made a video that I haven't even posted today, but I talk about, like, the Chicano movement taught me that the Chicano movement begins in the home. And so I've seen that as a contradiction, because I've seen what some of these organizers have done in their own homes. But I took it deeper to mean even within your own home, of you being a person, your sanctuary of yourself. If you don't check yourself, how are you going to go check someone else? If you're being nasty and messed up to other people, how do you expect to go point the finger at someone else? for doing the same thing. If you're diminishing your people, if you're not paying the taquero on the corner what they actually should be getting paid, because they don't know their worth yet, how you expect other people to come and value them when we don't value each other? And so that is, I think, where I'm at right now. What I've learned and what I can help with in the moment, it's the organizational structure, it's the bringing people together, and people being able to check themselves and find their own healing, however that may look.
One of the most powerful, I would say, positions are leadership roles that people play is being a convener. And that's what I see you as, a convener. And being a convener is one of those things that brings people together. You can't control people. All you can do is bring them together and see what happens organically, you know. We just set the tone. We go for it, you know. But you brought up a lot of good things. Things that I struggled with when I was young is when the fraternity and the sororities came out. And on the particular campus that I was on, it was down to blows, you know, at some points. It got that contentious at time. Because there was other groups, this group called, not to call them out, you know, it's all love.
Call them out.
No, I don't, because they're good people. I don't want to say nothing bad about
call them in if you want to change the language.
But what I want to say is I didn't understand what they were doing. They were called Latin Active, and they were like more into, I don't want to say it was a party crew, but they just wanted to do things that felt good, which is cool. I get that. And the sororities, and fraternities, we struggle with that only because we're not Greek. You know, we don't need that system. But I see the power in it, the networking. One of my really good bros, he's an adamant fraternity guy, man. He was very happy to be involved, you know. And he told me Mecha, for some reason, attacked him, and he didn't feel good with them. He felt like, well, you guys are just too harsh.
And he left, right?
He left.
Yeah.
Even me, I was vice president of Mecha as a freshman. I went to the Escuela Tato Loco. We didn't need a Mecha at our high school, but by the time I got to college, I read the Plan de Santa Barbara like a Bible. I could quote that, you know, because in there it has a lot of things. It has things about how to handle problems, how to handle conflicts, and I took it seriously. The people wrote this manual for us, so I'm utilizing it, and I was very rigid in my early days. But I even saw that, like, me and Mecha didn't always click because I was connected to the barrio. We started an organization called Barrio Warriors. In that case, Mecha would always accuse us of being the hood, like, who graffitied in the office?
Yep.
Yeah, who did this? Who did this? And they would blame us because we're the homies. We're not the, you know, kids who came from that educational background, you know. I started school still in a halfway house in a challenge program, you know. And I wasn't even sure why I was there, other than I believed in the movement. I knew it was important. And of course, I wanted Chicano studies, you know. That was also my love at the time. And I hear you. You know, like for me, I felt my Chicano studies professors, for the most part, because I was active in the movement, I felt like this is just a matter of opinion. You know, I'm going to share my opinion. You might not agree with it, but it better not reflect on the grade.
Right.
Because I'm the one, I'm in the street, you're not. So to me, the Chicano studies and all that is an extension of the work in the community. But it's a bridge, you know, it's a bridge. So I appreciate that. But how did you deal with that internal struggle? And why did the other groups not appeal to you in the way you felt the sorority could? You know?
So, truth be told, Lambda Theta Alpha, it was only because I had the opportunity to become a founder. And I recognized that being a founder, I was going to be able to help mold that chapter to be something different. And that is what my line sisters at the time, which is the girls I was founding the chapter with, they all had this idea of being different. And they honored that. They let me be the mechista. Like, that was not an issue. They showed up to the actions. They came through. And you know what? We proved people wrong, too. We'd show up with our letters because Mecha was like, we don't like Greeks because you can't show up with your letters. You know, what kind of org, blah, blah. I was like, all right, this is what we're doing. We're showing up with our letters. Like, and they would come through. And then another thing, I built so many bridges and that I barely feel are coming together now, and it's been 15 years later. We were the first sorority, the only sorority to do a co-collaborated event with Chicano Studies, Mecha, and Dreams to Be Heard on our campus. That has to be a national break, you know? But also, we were the enchanting, well, we are, even though we died. We are the enchanting and captivating Delta Omega chapter, El Corazón del Valle. And sisters would joke that it's El Corazón del Barrio. And when I was joining, it was always like, what's up, Chola? What's up? Like that, you know, everybody just kind of, that became my name, right? And I didn't have a problem with it, to be real. For me, it was one that I was being honored in the space. I think I got really lucky with my educators. They were both pretty sharp-tongued, and, you know, they were both, I felt, hood, you know, to a certain extent. So it was just divine. Like, I think it was alignment, like in just the way things happened. But it gave me an opportunity to also understand the system, how to get money, how to not overwork ourselves to do things. And you know what? It was the very thing that created balance for me. Because while the Mechistas never voting me into an internal position, even though I ran for 4 years, continuous actually gatekeeping me and standing at the door of a Dia de los Muertos event, not allowing me and my sisters to come in because we were wearing our sorority letters. They told us that we couldn't come in, so I wasn't allowed to go to Dia de los Muertos, even though I attended every weekly meeting. I felt like they were discriminating, doing the very thing that had been done to them, to someone that was helping them. And so I was like, all right, cool. But I could have let that remove me from the space, but I didn't. And a lot of people, a lot of therapists out there will say, it's because you like abuse and you're used to being abused. But, you know, like, thanks for the psychoanalytics. But I stayed because I felt there was something I still had to learn. If I am being left out, what is it that's not vibing? What is it, you know, what is that thing that I'm not understanding maybe, right? And so it didn't come to me then. It came to me right before I kind of started my doctorate. And that's when I took a break from the sorority, from all the things I was doing. I was on national boards, like, not national, like national assistantships, regional stuff, doing all kinds of stuff. I'm a lifetime member. I really was, you know, about it because I thought that the next iteration of the movement, that they would be part of it and that they had the power on college campuses to create some type of national walkout. And I got very just discouraged because it didn't happen. But, you know, that's kind of how divine time works. Maybe it wasn't meant to happen back then. Maybe they're still learning. But I think that had I removed myself from that space completely, from either space, there's a lot of learning I would have missed out on, a lot of growth, and the opportunity to learn balance by being in two almost opposite places. Because my sisters, my siblings, they reminded me to come out and throw some ass. Like, they reminded me to, like, let loose. To not sit in my room and just try to draw up plans and, like, create the solution and, come on, girl, like, let's go. Like, they helped me also develop. Like, I saw the issues that they were going through as women. You know, I was able to come out into that space before I was able in Mecha, you know? And so there was some type of safety that was created with us and some type of comfort. And, you know, I think to me, that was kind of the ability to be in both worlds and not get consumed by one world over the other and choose, right? And so that, I think, just kind of allowed me from a very young age to find balance. And, you know, maybe I took a little overboard in some places, you know, with that balance, you know, but it's just, I could sit here and just criminalize or demonize myself for, going overboard here and there. or I can just say it was part of my journey and it allowed me to grow and keep going. You know what I mean? So it was a walking contradiction, but it gave me the tools necessary to be in the leadership role that I'm in within La Raza Unida right now. Everything that I have done has been preparing me for this moment. I truly believe that.
Well, I do appreciate you being that a bridge, a convener, like I said, because in my early days, like I said, we were very rigid. You know, even though I was hardcore Chicano movement, Mecha wasn't hardcore enough for me, I felt a lot of times. The leaders that we had were good people. I mean, I would still follow them today. Dusty, there's different women that were the leaders at that time. They were in leadership and I was a leader too. I was a vice president, but I was young and too critical, I think, at the time, but I learned from all that. Even, like I said, I have a lot of bros that were fraternity people into the culture. And, I think even they realized, like, well, they're missing out too.
Yeah.
They're missing out on the cultura. They're missing out on different things. But, that's how we build. That's how we build. And no one does good when you're too rigid.
Yeah.
You have to be open. And that's what for me, it means a lot. You know what I mean? I'm never going to let something keep me away from my own people.
Yeah.
Even if they don't agree with me right now, the only way they're ever going to listen to me is if they just know me and know what my intention is. You know what I mean?
I agree with that too. And I'll say this is that my mom taught me a very valuable lesson, I think, as a young kid that I just came to realize recently. But in an essence, my mom taught me how to pick my battles because she always said, don't ever go into a space and ever assume you're right all the time. And because I grew up, I went to the polar opposite, thinking I'm wrong all the time. So like I went into spaces thinking that. I tended to just kind of watch and listen in a lot of spaces instead of asserting my idea or my thought. The place I felt most comfortable to actually act out on my triggers when people would get me angry was in the sorority. So, if a sister in the group, if I told her, one of my homegirls, China, was going to join and she's like, oh, we don't need people bringing down our GPA. And I'm like, bro, what? I'm the one carrying everybody in this chapter right now. How dare you, right? And it was my ability to be outspoken in that space. I think also that helped, like, all of us grow. It helped me find my voice because I still felt like I couldn't do that in Mecha spaces, right? And so that's where I'm saying, like, everything that has happened in my life has led me to the point where, like, now I'm being outspoken in like the Mecha space. Because like La Raza Unida would be equated to that in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's like coming in and being like, you know what? I haven't liked none of y'all's leadership. But you know what? I think I could actually do a little bit better. Maybe I can leave this a little bit better than it started. And so I took that upon myself instead of waiting for somebody else to do it.
So tell me a little bit about just in case our listeners don't know or are unfamiliar with a little bit of the history of La Raza Unida and really, what's your goal there? What are you trying to accomplish now? I want to let you know, not only did I join, but I became a paid member as well.
Thank you.
I support the movement. I've always have, and I know it doesn't take just good intentions. You have to actually do something. You have to put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
You can't criticize from afar. You got to be willing to do the work, or, even just letting people know, hey, I support this. This is a way for our people to be engaged in fact, in Colorado, I don't know if I went years where I was only registered La Raza Unida. It wasn't until Obama came that I felt that I needed to switch just so I could vote in the primaries at the time. Actually, I was voting for Bernie, to be honest. But that's part of it. I mean, not that I believe in that system because I don't. I always listen to what Corky said. It's a two-headed monster, our dragon, whatever you want to call it. It's the same. They're still run by the same corporations, all that kind of stuff. We know that. But at the same time, I just don't want to go through that. A lot of my other homies would be like, nah, they would vote contrary just so that they said, well, at least we know who our enemies are. But there's that feeling too. But tell me what led you there and what's your vision?
Yeah. So La Raza Unida, how I got there was I actually was organizing with a group called Chola Pinup. And we stumbled across, well, no, actually, I met Ernesto Ayala, who is son of Genaro Ayala, who led the San Fernando Valley chapter since the 1970s after the Chicano moratorium. Actually, La Raza Unida became registered the day of the Chicano moratorium here in San Fernando Valley. But it started off in Crystal City, Texas. It was to become third-party option. It was to become the hub of where people, and at that, La Raza, right? Chicanos at that time, in collaboration with other oppressed people, right? Because a lot of people don't know our history with the PLO. So, we've always been pro-Palestine. We've seen their struggle as a mirror of ours, right? And so, it was really to stand with an oppressed nation and center their needs in whatever we did, in people running for office, so that we would have a voice in those settings, right? And so, as you know, there was a split, and La Raza Unida kind of dwindled out for a while, but Genaro Ayala and the Ayala family kept it up since, like the 1980s. I also want to say that, there is a lot in terms of our history as Chicanos, Chicano nationalist organizations that people don't fully understand and kind of, I think, sometimes get stuck there too. But La Raza Unida also in 1974 was one of the only Chicano movement organizations that had a woman in a leadership role. And so our national vice chair was a mujer. And so we also had groups like Madres de la Raza. And there was a lot of siloed organizing, for sure. Very representative of the times. And I think that's what a lot of people have to recognize sometimes with history, is the times that they were in, right? And so here we are, right? A couple years, like 20 years later, I joined 10 years ago in the study group capacity. So I wanted to keep learning. I had finished undergrad, was no longer a Chicano studies major, but I needed this balance in my life. I started working full time at a law school. And so I started going to study groups so I could keep learning. And that is really what drew me to the organization. And that's kind of how I stayed a member for a very long time. I'd show up to actions as a supporter, never really taking on another membership into an organization, just kind of studying with them. But I always felt a connection to La Raza Unida. And in 2020, when everything was shutting down, the murder of George Floyd, we have a sister organization called the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So we were convening with them. And so it became this place of, we need to get organized. We need to create our structure. We need to start getting things together again. And so they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be the vice chair. And I said, you know what, why not? Like, I'm in San Diego, I'm alone, I'm missing this part of myself again. And with Zoom, it became possible to be in San Diego and be on the line with someone in Arizona, Colorado, and San Fernando Valley. So we started up again. And this time I decided, like, by this time, I'm comfortable with the Ayala family. I'm comfortable with Ernesto. Like, I could say whatever I need to say in that space. And so I just, would question things. I would, think about things in a different way. And that's kind of, we all kind of had the same sentiment. What was done hasn't been working. The organization has been kind of null for the last, 20 years. So it was this reimagining. We had Daniel Osuna, who was our national treasurer at that time, who was an original member in the 70s of La Raza Unida. We just started over. We just kind of, not over, we leaned on history and we learned our lessons. And we just started organizing again with the focus on study groups. That's really been always at the foundation of La Raza Unida, a place for education, dialogue, critical thinking, consciousness, building, becoming a visionary, right? And so it allowed me to dream again. I think I was in a tough spot, and it really allowed me to envision Aslan, right? And there's a lot of critique out there, right? But for me, when I just cut out the noise and something allows me to dream, I use it as a tool to dream, right? And so re-envisioning Aslan and what that would look like in today's world, and getting with the times. I heard so many things out there like Chicanosaurus, and I was that would like irk me, right? But I was like, yeah, some of these guys are archaic, but to me it was like, okay, but there's some learning from there, right? Like some of the stuff like they're teaching, they're kind of like talking history books, like storytellers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm like, just take what they say and like think of something new, right? Think of something else. And so right now we are in a place where we are operating in 18 states. My goal, and what I said when I became the chair almost 2 years ago, my term ends in September. So I'm still unsure if I'm going to run again, but my goal was to help with the organizational structure, with being outspoken for the needs of people of duality, women, as it relates to things that I've seen, things that I've experienced as well, but also to create spaces for those folks to come in and lead their own discussions and their own visions of what things could look like for different communities within these intersectionalities, right? And so it's really, I think, leaning from my experience working in higher education for over 13 years and meeting students from so many different intersectional identities and wanting them to be included. And so when most people aren't thinking about deaf folks, I'm thinking about how do we get an interpreter onto all of everything that we do. Interpreters are so expensive. So when you talk about accessibility, it's like, how do we create that? How could La Raza Unida become a system that becomes a hub for lawyers and doctors and all these different departments, let's say, right? I envisioned it like a building. Every floor is a different department, right? And so what kind of departments do we need today? And how can we transfer to a place of energy as currency? How do we go back to potentially bartering? How do we strike a balance, right? Like, how do we transition from this monetary value system, right, to a place where we could be liberated, right? And what I even notice is that maybe life has treated me in such a way that I'm still able to dream because others can't anymore. They've been just struck and struck again. And so I take that responsibility like very heavily, because I feel like when you can dream, you can inspire other people to dream. You can motivate other people to see themselves as part of a greater vision, right? And so that's where I'm at. I was pushed out of education finally, but I was in a staff role. And there's so much raza that has been pushed out of so many spaces because they don't think right. They don't do these things right. They don't do it the right way. Those are the people that I want to co-create with because they've been thinking outside of a binary, outside of the organizational structure that has been created for them. And so we have so many skills and talents, but sometimes we don't know how to put our own skills and talents to use. And so what I've realized is being in those spaces where we talk about those things, that's when light bulbs come on. It's being in communal space and hearing things and sitting in stillness to let our ancestors speak to us because they will speak. But we don't give them an opportunity. So it's getting all of us together to teach each other different ways of healing. Yes, go out to the protests and let it all out. Let the coraje out. But when you get home, replenish do some mantras in your bath, whatever it is that you do that makes you feel good, right? And so that's where I also feel about like transition, right? Like I am barely in this type of role. I'm barely becoming, I feel, right? And that's where I feel like I ask people to have grace with me. I don't have it all figured out. And instead of coming and telling me what La Raza Unida should be doing, come in and do it. Yeah. I'm not trying to do everything for everyone. I'm nobody's savior. I'm here to walk hand in hand with people that want to do stuff. Because guess what? I still want to go out on a Friday night and throw some ass with my sorority sisters. You know what I mean? Like we can be in duality. We don't have to always just be in this space or that space. Like we can fluctuate, right? And so it's teaching each other those things sometimes, because sometimes we don't have good examples. We don't know where to look to when we've literally lived in a system of slavery where all of our people are slaves either to a system or to their own mind. So where are we supposed to gather examples? We come from families, a lot of us, where we've seen our parents get to the point of killing themselves for a job. And some of us, the light went on and said, we don't want to do that to ourselves, right? So it's those people coming in to inform, well, how do we make sure we don't do that? How can we grow this without conforming to the system, right? How do we get rid of these corporations, but how do we put something in their place that's cultivated by us? Because you can tell somebody to boycott all you want, but where are they going to go? Especially when you're working 14 hours, don't even have enough income to make ends meet. Yo, Walmart sounds like the best option. What's your supplement? What's your solution? Stop just like telling me like, do this, give me something else, right? And so that's what I envision for us. That's what I hope that in September, the weekend of our Congreso, we're going to have a liberation conference in LA. And it really was inspired by Corky's last address and the conference, right? And so I want to have all of these people in a space to meet each other, to see their other them, to like actually continue cultivating and see the possibility of something else, because we have plans and now people can be part of those plans. And like we were talking about earlier, you're not going to be the end all be all. Right now, I'm a speaker because I found my voice. But I'd love to transition into a medicine woman at some point in a different capacity, because I do know that speaking brings medicine. I do know that me sharing and storytelling is medicine. But I've seen other things that I want to learn, and I want to actually help someone else find their voice. I want to be able to be a mentor to someone and have them come in and be the next speaker. And also let them know that you can be a speaker and you don't have to be the chair of La Raza Unida. Maybe there's another position that's created for you, because that is the beauty of this organization, is that it is willing to move. It is willing to reshape. We just did it, right? And I think that has been, in my eyes, the issue with our educational system. So much red tape, so much no. This is the way it is. So if we are walking our talk, we're doing exactly that in La Raza Unida. We're saying, you know what? This is how it is now. But, 10 years from now, the Chicano people, Chicanas, they might have a whole other name. We are open to that. But we are open to that if it comes out of the people here in these spaces where you're integrated with people that didn't go to college, with people that didn't write in a book, where people aren't reading theory. You're all coming together to create a new identity then. But we ain't erasing what came. Because that informs us.
That was one of my always big fears. I was teaching we were doing some curriculum training. There was a young woman there who made a statement that Chicanos hurt people and indigenous things and this and that. And not to any disrespect her, but I just reminded her, what about Los Seis de Boulder that blew up at the campus there? There was women there, Eva. How many women are named Eva in Southern Colorado because she gave her life up, for the movement. Then you have Luis Jr. Martinez, and you have Ricardo Falcon, and you have all these people who died. I'm not willing to just forget them, Right. And I get it. The identity is complex, and and a lot of times that's where the education system, to me, you could talk yourself out of anything.
Right.
And we could even talk ourselves out of being relevant. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, I'm open to grow. I think that's the most important thing. I always felt like with the movement, we were always pulled. When I was young, I was pulled to, are you on this side or are you on that side? And a lot of the elders pulled me to the side. Are you with us? Are you with them? Are you with this? And people might not know, but at least in Denver, there are competing movements, Not that I don't want to say who's wrong or right, I did pick a side. I only picked because I just picked who put the most love into me. It was not an oversight on the other part. I just felt like these people love me. These people are trying to hurt me. I don't know why. I never did nothing to them, but that's how it is sometimes, And I think we're worst enemy in a lot of ways, but I also see the beauty when we come together. It's the most beautiful thing. And there's that nod. There's that raza nod. Like I've been so many times in a situation and the other person is raza and they just give me this look like, I got you. Don't worry about it. And that look is I've seen it happen so many times. And to me, that's our unity. That's the power of our unity. I appreciate you, what you're doing. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, I hope, and this is my plea to our elders and Yelders. We call Yelders the young elders, the ones in between. Because a lot of times in our movements, we focus on the young people. That was a thing that came out in the 80s and 90s, right? Youth development, youth are the ones. But to me, as one of those youth at that time, I realized I just felt like we're put on a pedestal, but we weren't given the agency really to do anything. Later on, I realized it, but it took time. And I don't want to do that to other young people. I think they're important a part of our movement, but as a intergenerational struggle, I know my place here.
Right.
I'm here to guide. I'm here to learn. And I'm also here to, to be the guardrails for them, not to squelch, I guess the word is, their enthusiasm to help our people, but really to foster it and help them grow and say, take us to the next level, But we also have to be respectful of those that came before us, there's that saying, those are the giants that we stand on. But we also have to take into account the bad that some of our people did. There's parts of our culture that are toxic, that are not pushing forward. I want to remind the people too, even in the 80s, when there was a real push, there was kind of a shift to Central America because they were being brought up here. Some people were like, they didn't want to include Central Americans, but some of the biggest advocates for them were Chicanos.
Yep.
They were there from the very beginning, even immigration.
Yep.
Even today, in today's world, I heard somebody say, like, the gente are worried that Chicanos are not going to support them. And the large parts of us, I know will. They'll be there, But there are some of us who voted the other way. It goes back to civil responsibility. And I think La Raza Unida gave people choices. And a lot of times people don't realize this, that you have to pay a poll tax back in the day. And that was the way they really damaged our people, was saying, we'll give you the money for the poll tax, but we want you to vote this way. Or if you don't vote this way, you're going to lose your job. Things like that. I know that happened in Coors in the 70s and 80s. But today there's many examples of that. But, switching us back to, I'm proud you're in that leadership role, proud you're providing opportunities for people to learn and grow. And I want to remind people that we're complex, but really in our lives, we have to honor those 4 things of ourselves: our physical self, our mental state, our emotional state, and our spiritual state, and I talk about spirit, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the ability to uplift each other. And whatever that is, it could be music, it could be a video game, could be a TikTok, could be a reel of some sort that makes you laugh and that inspires you, and you watch it all the time, There's some reels or some little videos that I keep just because they make me laugh or they inspire me, and I keep them, and sometimes I'll share it with people or not. But anyway, it's my own little thing, you know what I mean? And I know that all that can be overwhelming for people, but at the end of the day, if we don't help each other heal, we don't help each other do things, no one's really going to. We are the familia we're seeking. Some people say, well, I didn't get that, so they're mad. It's like, well, create it. Let's create it.
Yeah.
Let's create it together. So with that, how would you suggest, like if you're these young people coming to you, and because, to an 18-year-old at your age, they think you're the elder.
For real?
And people your age think I'm the elder, right? And then I have to even look up too, like Maestro Jerry Teo, he's my elder, or Maestra Deborah or any of these other maestras, like they're my elders,
Yeah.
And even though I think I learned a lot and I know a lot, I think that, but then they remind me, no, you don't know as much as you think you know, right? Because I have life wisdom. Even in your theories, we got to put the life wisdom in there too. But what would you suggest? Where would you tell somebody who doesn't have their identity, who is kind of been through life, had a little bit of hurt? What would you say to that young person? Like the person before you got activated, what did you need to hear?
That you are enough just the way that you are. And that there might not be a box for you. And so the question really is, why are you trying to find the box to tell you who to be? You don't need to find a box. You just need to just be. And just remember that as long as you are operating from a heart space, things will work out. You'll find your people. Your authenticity brings the right people into your life, and it literally expels the people that are not meant to be in your life. It's when you switch up, it's when you forget yourself that can take you to a dark place.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? That's part of the healing. It's part of it. Again, I'm proud of you, and I'm sure, I have faith in you. You as a young leader, I'm down to follow it. Let's see what you got. I'm down. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
And that's what I feel about. I want to encourage people. I was on a call Saturday. There was like 200 people with self-defense call for LA for this immigration stuff. It's beautiful. It's happening all over, right? It's happening in the Bay. It's happening in the Central Valley. It's happening in Denver and Texas and everywhere, right?
Yeah.
People are coming together saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The thing is, I want to tell people, be activated, do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that too. And I think you're talking about Unión del Barrio does those. And see, that's the thing. It's all about uniting together because we have been operating in silos. Let's all come under one party. Let's all come together, bring all our gifts and share them with each other and allow people to fold in wherever they feel fit, right? We have people that want to do mutual aid, right? And it's like the same thing I did when I was in the sorority. It's like somebody came and told me, oh, I like this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, actually, this other sorority you might want to check out before you make a decision. I'm never going to keep someone here that doesn't believe in it or see it, right? But if they see themselves fit with Unión, we work together anyways. And also, you can be part of both of us. This isn't the sorority, right? Like, you can be part of both of us and be more active with them. You get to choose. That is how we get to liberation and self-determination. You have the opportunity to choose. And it starts by coming in with us so we can show you that opportunity, so we can show you what it would look like, because I think that's part of the problem. We don't have that vision. We don't know what liberation really is because we haven't seen it. We haven't felt it. Some people don't know what self-determination even means. So it's like, come together so we can build it, so we can see that future. And so, that means joining whatever moves you, because let me tell you, I am on a mission to unify. So whatever org you end up with, if, the divine allows, the alignment allows, we will end up all working together anyways.
Mm-hmm. So if people want to learn about what you're doing and learning about how to get involved, what do you want to share with people? If you share the links with us, we'll make sure they go out in the notes and everything. But what would you say?
I would say you can follow me directly at Homegirl Doctora. You can go to my website, www.homegirldoctora.com. If you want straight up access to me, I hold Noches de Palabra every other Tuesday night at 6 p.m. on Zoom. You can sign up on my website under homegirldoctora.com/events. You fill out a form and it emails you the link to join those meetings. You can also join La Raza Unida party by visiting us at www.razaunidaparty.org. And our page for membership is just /membership. We have a free option and a paid option. And we have so many opportunities for involvement. And this doesn't just mean going out and protesting. It means working together to create art, to create poetry, to offer medicine if that's what you do. If it means organizing, taking notes, being a project manager, whatever your skills are, there's a place for you in La Raza Unida. And you don't have to change. You don't have to commit to going to a protest if that's not your thing. I think, that's sometimes where people get a little stuck. But yeah, we're here as a resource. We have, again, every Wednesday night, we have our study groups via Zoom as well. We also, if you join for membership, you'll get access to our Discord channel, which will give you access to speak with our membership across the nation. So creating that national network. So there's a lot to come. We hope you'll be involved and be part of it, even if it's just in spirit or in organizing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to echo that too. Join, like I said earlier, I joined. I see the vision and it's good. And I want to remind you too that in your life, in the movement, there's room for everything. Just like what Vanessa said, there's room for everybody. If you want to just do art, that's cool too. We need that. We need vision. A long time ago, our people, they didn't read and write the way we did. They used a social utility, art, right? We shared values on the walls. We shared things that were important to us. And we need that. We need poets. We need singers. We need organizers. We need security. We need healers. We need all those people. And however you could support, I just want to encourage you.
Even if it's monetarily, if all you can do is go click the donate button.
Yeah.
We would gladly appreciate it. And we know that it will come back to you threefold. Because every time we get a donation, that is what I wish on the person that sent that donation. Mm-hmm. So It will come back. I know it will.
Yeah, sometimes you might have resources more than time in your life. And that might be the way you do it. So I just want to thank you again. And again, I want to remind all the relatives, please share the podcast. And if you know anybody that you think we should talk to, let me know. I got a few ones from the last episode. Not only Vanessa, but we got this man over there from Pueblo, Colorado, who does a lot of good work. I'm going to interview him soon. And we have a couple women here in Los Angeles that do work with young people that I want to bring them on, and talk to them. Like I said, the Hood Healer editions are coming. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that, but they're coming, just be patient. And again, I want to remind the gente that when it comes to healing, when you heal, I heal. And when I heal, you heal, we have to work together to make this happen. And I know there's a lot of people that, because of society are feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe they're feeling a little some way, about people, but I just want to say, just because you didn't get love in the way you wanted it doesn't mean that you don't deserve it, that you could still love yourself, and your people need you, they really do. And your family needs you, your kids. Like the only way we're going to make change is with action. There's no other way. We can't wish it away. We can't pray it away. We have to meet. You have to meet the Creator halfway. We have to do our part. I just want to encourage everyone to do that. Thank you again. Palabra.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org And be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.